Hey guys and girls, it's Mike at D20 Studios, and today we're going to make a video on how to make plastic models. This is a basic how-to video because I've seen quite a few videos online with regards to making models, but none of them go really into the basics. So this is aimed at the newest of beginners. I'm going to break down the video into 4 basic parts. The first part will be tools you will need, as well as other little bits. The second part will be how to clip. The third part will be how to remove the flash. And the fourth will be how to assemble a model with glue. So obviously these are the plastic kits that I'll be using today. I'll be using these WAVs out of the Perry Miniatures Battle in a Box. And as you can see here, they're all on a sprue and ready to be clipped off and assembled. So the first part of the video, I'm going to go through the tools you'll need. So first thing I recommend that you get is a nice sturdy pair of clippers. You can get these from multiple retailers. This one is a Citadel clipper set I bought about 3 or 4 years ago. It's a very good quality, and what you're looking for is a very sturdy set, because sometimes you'll be needing to cut into like the pewter and lead models that you might come across in the hobby in the near future. So again, getting a nice strong pair of these is essential. The second item that I recommend that you get is a Stanley knife or an X-Acto blade, whatever you can really get your hands on. The thing you're really looking for here is a nice sharp clean blade. If you do have any knives that have, like, let's say jagged edges or blemishes on the blade, this can actually affect the miniature and maybe damage it accidentally. The third item I recommend you get is a file, and you're going to be using this file to remove flash as well as take away mold lines on your models. I'll go into more detail on what you're going to be looking for when removing stuff off a model later on, but we'll be going into that in a sec. And the last but not least is the glue. You're going to get several types of glue, and what I've got here, which is perfect for plastic modelling, is poly cement. Now you can get different types such as super glue, and you can get thin and thick cements, but I go for extra thin because that's personally what I'm used to. You'll find as you go in the hobby there'll be certain types of things that you like and don't like. I find the extra thin poly cement very useful because, 1, it gives a very strong bond on your models and you don't need very much of it, and 2, most of these pots come with brushes. Now I find this very, very helpful when it comes to applying glue to the models, so that's something to bear in mind. Okay, now before I started any of my modelling, I've got myself a small area that I've made for myself to work in. I've got myself a tray virtually to work on top. This lets me keep my models and all my paints and all my things that I'm working on separate from whatever worktop I'm working with. This is a little bit of admin that helps me just basically focus on the hobby. There's nothing worse than when you're starting out hobby and it takes you like half an hour to take all your figures out, and that's half an hour you can spend modelling or whatever the like. So top tip for the day, get yourself like a little tray or something. Not only that, it also helps protect the surface that you're working on, and speaking from experience, it's always better to work on something like this and cut into this than it is to cut into a table, which unfortunately could start many arguments with our significant others, as you can see. Okay, so we're going to have a look at clipping first of all the model from the sprue. Now the first thing to do when removing models from the sprue is to identify what is part of the model and what is part of the sprue. And what I mean by that is that obviously, as you can tell, that these figures are attached to the sprue by small little plastic bridges, we should call them. Now I'm not 100% sure on the actual official name of them, but these are the bits that connect the sprue to the figurine. Now after you've identified and taken a closer look at your model and had a look at it for any imperfections, etc., you want to get out your clippers. Now on the clippers, you've got 2 sides to the clipper blade. You've got the angled part, which is the top of the blade, really, and then you've got the flat part. Now what you're wanting to do when you're clipping at a figure from a sprue, you're wanting to have the flat part towards the model as this won't accidentally clip off any other little bits that you might not want to clip off. So as you can see here, I've got the flat part towards the model. Now what I'm going to do is as well, is when I am clipping off the model, I'm going to try and look at these bridges here of plastic and clip as far away as I possibly can from the model. This makes sure that you don't accidentally rip off a piece of the actual figure, and it also means that you won't accidentally clip off a piece as well. So I'll demonstrate now using my clippers right here. Now I've selected this area well above the model, and I'm just going to gently clip like so. And as you see there, what it's done is it's left a little piece of plastic on the top, but what I'm going to do is in a second I'm going to clear that off with the knife and show you. I'm going to then completely remove the model from the sprue, double checking and making sure every time that I'm not going to clip off a piece that I actually want to keep. I say this because in the past I've had models that I've been working on and I've accidentally either clipped off a piece of the uniform or even a hand, and there's nothing worse than doing that because it makes modelling very, very difficult then. So the basic pieces of the model, as you can see here when it comes into focus, around the edges of the model you're going to see a faint line of plastic. Now you can barely, there we go on the model there. Right, the distinctive line there. Now what happens is, a model, when it's made in a mould, quite literally has a metal case around it, like that, and there's a line in that case. And what happens is that they pour the plastic in, and quite literally, they remove that bit, the case. And what happens there is that you get these slight ridges on the model. Now, obviously, in the second part of the model, we just clipped it. So there's going to be two actions in this third part, which is how to remove the flash and neaten up the model. So the first thing you want to do is, you want to get your knife or your blade, and making sure and taking the greatest of care not to cut yourself, remove the larger pieces of the flash off the model, like so. Okay? And taking your time. The biggest thing I will say is, when you first start out in this hobby, is to just take as much time as possible. You'll notice that if you have friends in the hobby who maybe have been doing this a little bit longer, they could probably do like a build in like maybe 20 minutes or a day or whatever the kit is. But what you've got to bear in mind is that this is not a race, and you should really try and enjoy this part of the hobby as much as possible, because a lot of the time in the hobby you're going to be building and painting. So as you've seen there, I've removed the large piece. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently remove the flash on the model. And the way I'm going to do this is one of two ways. You can either use your knife on the slightly larger pieces of the mold line, or you can use your file. Now, all I will say is the reason why we remove mold lines is because they show up when you do your painting. And when you undercoat it and you spray it or whatever, if it wasn't for the fact that I removed the mould lines on this figure, you would see a great big line going down his arm. But because I removed the mould lines, I've now got a nice smooth surface and the paint goes straight over it. So to get rid of these mould lines on the side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently just rub with the file from side to side, making sure that I don't remove any detail. Now what will happen is, after you've done a little bit of this and you've taken your time, making sure every time brushing away the extras, the extra bits of like plastic dust or whatever that comes off your model, I'm making sure here that I'm not destroying any detail and I'm not rubbing too hard, which might leave marks in the model. Now after you've gone down all the model, making sure to go in between, like, let's say the legs, as well as on the outside and on around the model, is you're going to be left with a line. Now the way to make sure that you've completely gotten rid of the mold line is to get something like your thumb or your small finger and just brush across the model. This would be a lot easier on a very flat area, so like let's say the hull of a tank or a flag or something. And you're basically, what you're trying to do is not feel where that line is. And when you've done that, when it comes to painting, what you'll do is you'll undercoat your model, and you won't see that line anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do a gentle rubbing on the rest of the model. Now I recommend you try and get yourself a small file, preferably something with a tip like this. I got mine from Army Painter. This makes filing all the way around models and such as like under the legs very, very easy. And let's say having a big file like this would be very, very difficult on a model. So again, small rounded files like this. And again, you can get something like this from Army Painter. So I'll pause the video there and I'll do my clippings and I'll do my filing, and then we'll go straight on to how to assemble the model. Now after I've done all of that, what I literally did was, whilst I paused the video, I quite literally removed the extra bits that I'm going to attach to the model, such as his rifle, his left arm, and the figure's head. Now on each of these pieces, I took my time. I did exactly what I did in the previous steps, and I filed them all down, making sure that I've removed all the mold lines and that they have all the rubbish off them. Now what you want to do is, before you want to start gluing a model, you want to try and do what we call a dry fit. Okay, now what that is quite literally just placing it on the model, looking at it whilst it's on the model and seeing if it sits there correctly, if there's no gaps, and that there's no cracks or whatever in the model itself. This helps you get an idea how the model's going to fit together, and means that if there's a piece that you might have accidentally removed that shouldn't be going on this model, it means that you can then identify the problem and then fix it before any glue is put on whatsoever. I recommend you always do a dry fit. Now when attaching another piece to another piece, what you want to do is ideally what I do is I take a file and I file the individual pieces in between the two items to give it a bit of purchase when you're placing the glue on there. So just a little light rubbing, and what this does is it creates like little pores and sort of like little abrasive parts on the model that the glue can help latch onto. And I do this on both, like so. Okay, and after I've done that, what I am now going to do is I'm now going to apply glue. Now what I like to do is I get only the tiniest piece of glue I possibly can, because in the world of modelling, less is always more, and that is so apparent when it comes to gluing, because the more glue you put on this item, the more it will melt it and might even possibly damage the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a light coating of glue on the arm where I've rubbed to create the abrasive sort of like patch. As you can see there, only the tiniest little bit of glue. And then what I do is I bring both model pieces together and then I gently place them together. Now, not all models are going to want to be put together at first. You'll see loads of videos on the internet about a thing called sub-assembly, and what that means is that people don't glue on guns or arms, and that's because a lot of times a figure will be holding a rifle in front of his chest, or a figure will be holding something in front of him or in a very difficult pose or whatever, which will make painting very, very difficult. Now, I always assemble my models and then paint afterwards because that's my personal style, but sub-assemblies are also another cool way of doing things and are worth looking up at on the internet. I'll do a video on sub-assemblies in the future, but this is just a basic how to assemble a figure, and as the Zouave is quite a simple model, it shouldn't be too hard to paint after I've assembled it fully. I'm going to do the same with the head, making sure that I only put on the lightest bit of glue and putting it in the position that I wish to, like so. It helps that if you've got a very fiddly miniature, to have maybe a pair of pliers or even a magnifying glass. This will help you with assembling the model, especially if you find you maybe tremble a little bit, or that you find it very, very difficult placing the piece on the model itself. As you can see here, after I've glued on the item, I gently nudge it in the direction I wish to So for example, if the model's face was facing this way like that, I could gently manipulate it afterwards. You'll find as you're putting your models together for the first time, you'll be doing a lot of manipulation because you're kind of not 100% sure where you wish to put the model. But like I was saying, in the process of doing a dry fit beforehand, this gives you a general idea what you're trying to do. Again, I'm going to put a little piece of glue on there, and then bring the item back up, like so. And again, I'm going to go around the model, making sure that after I fit it on, that there's no big cracks or breaks in the model. And there you go. And that is one assembled model. Now, as you look around the model, obviously there's still lines and everything, like I was mentioning to you before, from the mold lines. But when you spray paint it, or if you cover it in a paint of an undercoat, those lines should disappear. At this point, if you do have any lines that are still visible, let's say the big gaps in the arm, which I'm not really bothered about, you can get a thing called green stuff. And I'll be doing a video on green stuff later on. And virtually what it is, it's like a putty that you place on the model and you can manipulate, and it can cover cracks and holes. But like I said, I'll be covering that in another video shortly. Well, I hope you found this video very helpful. If you like the video, please add a like, and please hit that bell to subscribe button. It helps the channel greatly. If you have any questions on the videos or about any modelling tips in general, or if you're just generally looking for help, please feel free to leave a comment below and I'll answer you as soon as I possibly can. And okay, I guess that's it. Happy wargaming and happy hobbying. This is Mike from D20 Painting Studios. Goodbye.